Hello, welcome everyone to our monthly transformation series. This is an opportunity for us to gather in beloved community, and we're featuring people who are really excited to hear about their journeys, about their contributions to our community, and how they're building beloved community. Well, Shirley and I have been doing this series for about a month, and today we have a very special guest, Dr. Rene Dumetz, who is the chair of our clinical psychology program. Welcome, Rene.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Dumetz, I have been looking forward to this conversation. Tell us what you would like others to know about you.
I'm the CIIS chair, and I have been that for the past 6 years. 6 years. I've been with CIIS for 7 years, clinician and a psychologist for maybe the last 10 years, and I've been a professor and teacher for 15 years before that. I'm an immigrant. I came originally from Jamaica, so you'll hear that in my accent. But I've been living here much longer than I lived in Jamaica, twice as long to be accurate. And so kind of perceive myself as being from multiple cultures. And I've lived in various places across the United States, which has given me a lot of exposure to all the various ways that people live and dwell and the cultures in those areas. I lived in New York, Miami, LA, and now in the Bay Area.
Can you talk about this distinction between a PsyD and a PhD?
Okay. Well, in terms of PhD, there are many different kinds of PhDs in different arenas. Within psychology, the PhD degree differs from the PsyD degree, which is PsyD is that it's a much more focused degree on clinical work. And so one of the big differences is in terms of the curriculum. So the curriculum for a PhD in psychology is much broader, and the PsyD is much more specific. So you're going to do a lot more courses that are around clinical work. So that's, I think, a big difference between them. Also, the dissertation tends to be longer in the PhD, and quite often the coursework is also much longer as well. But those are the main differences. But in terms of how that shows up in the field and working with clients, there's not that much difference between them.
What has been most satisfying for you in your work, either as a teacher or as a therapist?
Um, Definitely, I'm one of those people who feels tremendous compassion and empathy towards others. So helping other people has always been a focus of who I am. It's very important to me that uh, I feel that I'm making some kind of impact and influence on the culture and the people around me, that I'm offering something that is helpful and that increases people's well-being. So that's a really important focus for me. So psychology is kind of like the perfect field for that, especially in our present situation and circumstances as a culture. There's a lot of mental health issues that people are coming up, discovering. I find it fulfilling is actually training other clinicians. So being a professor and a teacher is actually, I would say, my greatest joy. That's what really motivates me, is the teaching. We're sending out clinicians who are able to offer like a holistic and integrated and meaningful kinds of therapy.
So Carol says, Renee, in speaking about your societal crossroads we find ourselves facing, what can we learn from your insight as suggested in your own dissertation into non-dual experiences, especially because it seems we're facing insurmountable levels of ignorance on so many levels?
So my dissertation on non-duality is all about unity, namely that we as human beings are interrelated and interpenetrated and are never separate from each other. This idea that we are somehow just individuals wandering around in the universe, I think is delusional. That we live in we're embedded in our world and we cannot be separated from our world. If we were separated, we would not exist. The reason we exist is because we're embedded in our environment, we're embedded in community, we're embedded in society, we're embedded in our culture. And all of that has to be taken into consideration and addressed in meaningful ways. So this is not the time to become, go off on your own and feel separated and isolated. This is a time for unity and communion and community.
Can you talk a little bit about, I know you've been to a number of different schools. What is it about CIS, or is it anything about CIIS that's particularly distinctive and beneficial for people who are trying to figure out where they might kind of plant their flag, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, I'll just start off by saying I think CIS is very, very unique and very special and dear to my heart. I think that we have a role in the community that frequently we don't fully grasp. I've been in many meetings that have nothing to do with CIS, and in spiritual circles, in certain other circles, CIS has a big impact and people mention us and talk about us. That even happened in a meeting this week where I was in a meeting that was totally unrelated to anything to do with CIS or psychology. And CIS was brought up twice in that meeting. So I think we have a really important role because we're engaging with perspectives and worldviews that are important to be included and show it needs to be shown up in a different way. We show up in a different way in the community, and I think that's important.
I want to take you to a space and give you a chance to talk about you as a mentor.
Mhm.
I know, I'm sure you have lots of students or former students who've seen you as a mentor, who still see you as a mentor. Talk with us about sort of your own mentoring relationships.
Well, you use a critical word in that question, which is relationships. Because I think that that's how we are as humans. We're always in relationship. That relationship is not always good, not always healthy, not always acknowledged. Sometimes, quite often, it's flowing from ignorance of the fact that we're in relationship. We learn through relationships. So I think it again, it comes back to this whole thing of love. I think that I always want to make sure that I'm coming from a place of love. And when I say I'm coming from a place of love, I don't mean that I don't pay attention to rules or I don't say what's necessary, because sometimes love needs to give the hard truth, because it's not just soft and holding. It's also uplifting and strengthening, and also sometimes it requires guiding. So there's all of that involved in it.
Well, speaking of that, I have a question, and this is one of the kind of wrap-up questions. You're getting close. This is talks about the long process of becoming a clinician, particularly a PsyD or a PhD. Since becoming a PsyD or even a licensed clinician requires a significant commitment of time and resources.
Mhm.
It's a long road. What questions should students considering this path be asking themselves?
I think what's required is, one, commitment. And when I say commitment, I don't mean commitment one and done. It requires committing and recommitting over and over and over. And with that, I also think you have to have a certain degree of passion for the subject, for the area. There needs to be a passion for the human condition, for understanding others. There needs to be a passion for helping others, because this is a helping profession. So I find that, you know, having that passion takes you through it, gets you through the rough spots and to the end. Um, some other things I think is being able to integrate a lot of different material, because you're going to be um, having so many different perspectives, so many different theories, so many different ways of seeing and being, and there is going to require the ability to integrate that all, which that's going to be done through what we would call inner work. There, because inner work is how you actually achieve that integration. And that inner work is both becoming aware of what your who you are as a person, what are your belief systems, what are your biases, your assumptions, and what are your various agendas. Actually knowing what it is that's important to you. What are the issues that you're working on? There should be some issues that you're working on. How are you growing? How are you not growing? Those are kinds of things that I think that therapy actually is really, very, really useful for, is helping people to discover all of that inner work and working on oneself, working on one's inner growth and development. Because who we are as humans, if you think of it, yes, we're embodied, and this body is very limited, and it has a certain surface area. But who we are as humans inside is vast. It has no end. There's no end, no limit. There's nothing there. It's like it's like the universe being contained in this little physical body. It's like trying to put the universe in. The truth is that we're actually not a self that's in a body. We're a body that's in a self. Is that the self is vast and expansive and endless. And then there's this limited body that sits in the middle of it. So that's a completely different perspective. And you are you not curious about what is in that vastness? I am fascinated by it. And I'm always searching for it. I'm an explorer at heart. And this is the greatest adventure and exploration that one can ever set out on, is to explore that inner world and that vastness that exists within all of us.
Wow, let's take a deep breath. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate what you put into these answers. I mean, these are answers that I think we need right now in our world to live the life we really hope to live. And you've given me, and I think others, hope that is possible. Thank you so very much for taking the time to be with us. I'm so grateful to CIIS for people like you and the other people on the call. It can make a difference in the world. I'm going to turn it back to Rachel for any closing remarks.
I am going to just stop the recording now, if you could do that. Thank you, everybody. How do